and I was like, oh snap. Hey guys, I just finished class, so I'm sitting in my car because I don't want to be outside while I wait for practice. Also, there's a mini fridge in the back of me. One of my friends, I held her fridge while she was back home, and then she came back to school this semester, and so I'm gonna go ahead and drop this off to her apartment. So today's video is gonna be all about interviews, more specifically dental school interviews, but it also is very relevant for medical school interviews, any graduate school interviews, even undergraduate interviews, and job interviews. And so I think that a lot of the things that I'm sharing today can be really helpful to anyone and everyone. So I want to start off by sharing a few tips that I have for people who are interviewing. Why did I talk like that? So the first tip is to treat the interview like a conversation rather than an interview itself. A lot of people kind of psych themselves out by practicing too much, I guess you could say. A lot of people practice their answers to an interview question, or they'll write down their answers to every interview question they think is going to come up. And I don't think that's a very good idea because you end up sounding very robotic and it's just not authentic, you know? You don't want to, I don't know. You just really want to show the interviewer that you're comfortable. You're going to be uncomfortable no matter what because everyone has those nerves in their body. When you don't talk like a conversation, everything seems so forced and fake, in my opinion. I don't know what other people think, but one thing that really helps me with that is talking to myself in the car. So I'll be driving somewhere to get groceries or heading to school or whatever it is, and I just talk random things, talk about myself. Another thing that's really helpful is recording yourself. It could be random questions or just you talking about anything and everything. You could just vent to your phone, and it's a matter of you rewatching it and picking out little things, whether you use a lot of filler words, which I kind of do, words like and, like, if you notice some bad habits that you have. I like to use my hands a lot, if you can't tell, but sometimes hand gestures can be a little too much. Some people are like, you're not a mime, you know? Like, talk. There's so many things that you do without knowing, so it's a good idea to record yourself. Another great tip is to know your application inside and out. A lot, if not most, interviews are open applications, so that means that the interviewer has access to your grades, your resume, your personal statement, your application, letters of recommendation, all of it. And then some are closed applications where, you know, either they get nothing, they may just get your resume, they may just get your personal statement, so they don't have that much to work with. You don't want to be the person that they ask like, oh, what did you do in this club? Or can you talk to me about this volunteer experience? And you're like, what? Like, I never did do that. Or, oh my god, that was something that I did many years ago and I don't remember what it was about. You really should know everything about yourself because you don't want to go into an interview and your interviewer know more about you than you know about you. Yeah. Also, if you're in a research group, I suggest looking into your research a little more because my research group that I was a part of in my undergrad, we didn't really have much going on because of COVID. I made sure that before my interview, I went back and I read everything about my research and like kind of brushed up. And I was really glad that I did that because one of my interviewers asked about so many little things about my research. They were asking me, what was your hypothesis? Like, what type of people did you reach out to? Like every little thing, as if I was applying for a research job, which I didn't mind because I knew the answers, but I was like, whoa, that's a lot of questions about research than myself. I guess it was just more of her making sure that I really knew what I was doing. The last piece of advice that I have is to make sure that you research your interviewers. This is not the last piece of advice, but this is all I can think about right now. Some schools provide you the names of your interviewers, and then I know that there was one or two schools that actually provided a link to a page about my interviewers, or they gave me a PDF of their name, their hobbies, what they teach, what they're interested in, blah 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 blah. And so for the schools that didn't give me that, I made sure that I searched up online things about this interviewer. And then there are some schools that didn't give me the interviewer's name at all. You kind of just want to get to know these interviewers so that when you do interview with them, you can kind of cater to what it is that they like. And so you can find some similarities between the two of you. You can kind of talk about their areas of expertise. And so if somebody is really big on local outreach or pathology, and that's something that you did in your research, or that's somewhere that you volunteered a lot, you really want to kind of cater and like show them that that's what you are interested in. And so that little connection that you have there might push you above another student. That sounds so bad, but that's what you want, right? There are many different types of interviews for dental school. I personally had a one-on-one interview, a two-on-one interview, and these interviews were me with a faculty member, me with a student, and then I had a PBL interview. So that's kind of like a group interview where you're presented a case, and as a group you work to solve the case. It's not like murder mystery case, obviously, but it's like a case study. You're presented different signs and symptoms and history and whatnot. You have to come up with the disease you think this person has. I also had an MMI. So MMIs are multiple mini interviews. I could be totally wrong on what that stands for. It's literally like a regular interview. You get a question and then you have X amount of seconds to think about your answer, and then you have X amount of seconds to answer, and then the next question comes, and it just keeps going. You get like, I don't know how many questions, but I thought that was pretty fun because a lot of those are not really about yourself. They're kind of situational or just random things that don't really relate to you or dentistry, but they're kind of trying to see how you can think on your feet, and you can pull a lot of personal traits out of the way that people answer. I also wanted to add that an interview shouldn't be stressful. I mean, yes, you want to put out your best self, but these schools wanted to interview you because they already liked you on paper, and they just want to see if you're a good fit for this school personally. They want to make sure that you fit well with the culture at their school. They want to see if you would work well with their students and their faculty. You want to research the school. You want to make sure you know their mission statement, values, and look through their websites and see what it is they talk about most, because that'll be the things that they value most. In your interview, you can talk about how your past experiences or your values align with theirs. If you have the opportunity, you want to talk to current students or students who have interviewed at that place before to kind of get a feel of how their interview is, because I know a lot of my interviews were kind of laid back and then others weren't as laid back. You kind of just want to have a small idea of the vibe that the interview has. I don't know if that's the right term. You want to know as much about the school as you can. You don't want to just make up random stuff to try to make the school like you. In the end, that's going to hurt you, because if you get accepted to that school and you choose to go to that school, the person who's going to feel left out and have a hard time is you. They have a certain way of making sure that the class dynamic is something that works well. So you just want to make sure that you're authentic. And if they say no, if you get denied, like, so be it. You're probably a great person. It's just that that school isn't the right fit for you. I'm gonna go ahead and start talking about some interview questions. The first interview question being, tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself is the basic interview question for all types of interviews. It's just like a little introduction before your actual interview starts. That's how I like to think about it. You don't want to make it like 10 minutes long, or you don't want to make it 10 seconds. I don't really know what people recommend, but I want to say mine was no longer than 2 minutes. In your interview, do not recite things from your resume or personal statement. I mean, if they ask about it, sure, talk about it, but they already know all that kind of stuff if they've already read it. Another really big question is, why dentistry? Be honest and tell them why you want to be a dentist. When they ask this question, you don't want to give general answers. Like, you don't want to say, oh, I want to be a dentist because I want to help people. There are a million ways in this world to help people, and you could have done any of those things, but why is it that dentistry was the one that you chose to do? The next question that I have is, Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? When they ask you this question, you don't want to be too specific or too broad. You don't want to say, I'm going to be an orthodontist working at blah 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 in California with blah blah kids and whatever dogs, this kind of car. They don't care about that. Another really popular question amongst all types of interviews is, tell me your strengths and weaknesses. I think a great number to kind of have at the back of your head is 3. There was one school who asked me for 3 each, and I was like, oh snap. When it comes to weaknesses, you don't want to give yourself an actual weakness. You don't want to say, oh, I'm super lazy, I'm a bad procrastinator. I mean, nobody wants a lazy dentist that procrastinates. Your weaknesses should be something that can be turned into a strength. And so for me, the number one weakness that I always say is that I'm a perfectionist, which I really am. Being a perfectionist can be seen as both a good and bad thing, and the bad part about it, which I always mentioned, is that I always become too tedious for certain tasks. I'll spend an extra hour or 2 on an assignment that I could have easily finished a while ago. You want to make sure that the weaknesses that you state are along those lines. Another question is, how would your blank describe you? In this blank, you can fill in family, friends, teachers, whatever. This question is pretty straightforward. You would say a few words that people would say to describe you. That's about it. I don't know what else to say. A lot of questions are about failure or stress. They'll ask you about a time that you failed. How do you cope with failure? Tell me about a situation where you were in conflict, or how do you deal with stress or a stressful situation and how did you respond to it? You just want to make sure that you have a specific scenario, story. If they ask for it, a lot of times they do. I always talked about how I always see failures as the biggest learning opportunity. You don't want to make it seem like you're quote unquote weak, because dental school is tough and they want to make sure that you're a student who can get through the hard classes, who can accept bad grades after a while, or a student who doesn't give up and continually works to make themselves the best student that they can be, whether that be retaking tests, studying after hour, lab practice, whatever it is. They want to make sure that you are capable of those things. There are a few questions on shadowing. What is it that you realized you liked or disliked after shadowing? What was your favorite shadowing experience? Where did you shadow? What is it that you learned in shadowing that you hope to change when you become a dentist? They'll ask you about your major, especially if you're not a pre-dental major. So if you're a psychology major or a chemistry major, whatever it is, they're gonna ask you why you chose that major and why you didn't go into pre-dentistry. You just want to make sure that you have a reason for your choice. Another popular thing is your favorite course or least favorite course. Some of the not so popular questions: what would you do if you saw somebody cheating on a test in your class? One really specific question was, what would you do if a student had a blog or a vlog and was talking badly about the school and posting content that included things such as drinking or partying? Somebody reported it to the school, and do you think it was right for them to report it or whatever, because that's their right to they're of age to do all that kind of things? But I kind of responded saying that it was bad for the school reputation wise, and you know, there's a level of professionalism that you should have as a dental student. I'm talking really fast because my camera's dying. It's blinking at me. So those are some of the tips and questions that I compiled for an interview, for a dental school interview. I wish you all the best of luck. Make sure that you are dressed completely. I think that you should also wear pants to your virtual interview because it just makes you feel more professional, and then you'll be better in your interview. My camera's dying, so best of luck. I hope you all get into the schools that you want to get into, and I'll see you next time. Bye!